Thank you for joining me in this series on 3 steps to create change, 3 steps to make it easier for you to change. That's what we're talking about, and we've already gone through the first couple of steps. Step 1 being to define, to clearly articulate for yourself, what is it that I want to change, right? This may sound obvious, but a lot of times we're not sure of exactly what we want to change. It's more generic, it's more general. So if you want to be successful at change and you want to change as quickly and easily as possible, it's very important that you get very clear on exactly what you want to change. So when we're talking about speech, what aspects of your speech do you want to change? What does that look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? So the clearer you are in defining what you want to change, the smoother and easier it's going to be for you to change it. And then the next step was for you to decide why you want to change it. And we talked about the map it model. So I want you to go back and look at this or that video. Now in this video, we'll be talking about the third and final step, which is how do we change? So think about it like this. Think about change as a journey. Let's say you need to walk a mile or so to a destination. So first, you're going to need to know what the destination is. Where am I going, right? You'll probably also want to know why, even if it's just because I just want to go see it. I want to go visit it. That's okay. That's a reason why. So what's the destination, right? What does that look like? And then why do I want to go there? Or else I might get distracted or diverted. I say, well, why am I going there? I don't even know why I'm going there, right? So you need to know why. And then you also need to know, you need to map out, right? You need to know, okay, how am I going to get there? What are the steps that I need to take to get to my destination? Now, what we've done with speech, especially for those who stutter, stammer, speak too fast, is we've created a roadmap with a list of daily activities that are designed specifically for you, right? That have been researched and tested over the last 12 years to target 3 areas of yourself, of your being, that affect your speech. First is your speaking style, how you actually speak, your rhythm, your cadence, your body language, your breathing, all those things. The second area is your mindset. That is how you think, what you think. Think negative anticipation, scanning ahead, saying, oh, I know I'm going to get stuck. I hope I don't get stuck. Worrying and fearing and all those things. So we have daily activities that target that. And the third one, which the other 2 kind of feed into, is your speaking identity. This is who you see yourself as a speaker. How do you see yourself as a speaker? Do you define yourself as an excellent speaker who can handle any speaking situation? Or do you see yourself as someone who stutters? So the activities that we've developed for you here target each of those areas. So it's a holistic process. So we've given you the roadmap. All you have to do is to then take those steps every single day. So what I want to do is to share with you 4 principles of change. And you can apply this to any kind of change that you want to make in your life, not just your speech. 4 principles of change. So first, you want to know, what are the steps I need to take on this journey that will get me to my destination, right? So you need to determine the steps that will take you in the direction of your destination. What steps, what activities, what things do I need to do on a daily basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, that will take me in the direction of my destination, which is smooth speech, calm speech, confident speech. All right. So here are 4 principles of change that you absolutely must know and follow if you want to reach your destination. Let me just run through them quickly. The first one is awareness. The second one is consistency. The third one is resistance. And the fourth one is self-talk. So let's run through these, and I'll try to be fairly brief, but I do want to make sure that I explain each of them. So with awareness, it means that you are aware, that is, you know, it is within your consciousness that you are doing something or that you're not doing something. So for example, if you're not breathing properly or if you're speaking too fast. These are the two major areas that we find that affect people's speech the most. If you're not breathing properly or you're speaking too fast, if you're not aware of that, then you will continue to do it every time you speak. This is perfectly normal. This is when something has become automatic, when it's a habit, when it's a pattern. And it's our brain's way of being efficient for us, right? It turns things into patterns and habits so that we don't have to consciously think about every single step and everything that we do. How do I do this? How do I take this step? How do I breathe? Well, it makes it automatic. The problem with it is that it can make things automatic. It can create a pattern for things that we don't want to do that could be detrimental to us. So when you are speaking, one of the first steps that you have to take is you have to start becoming aware, number one, that you're speaking. Hey, I'm speaking, because it's something that's so natural. Even when you struggle, often you're not even aware that you're speaking. So you want to become aware that you're speaking. Number two, you want to become aware of how you're speaking. How am I speaking? How am I breathing? Am I speaking too fast? Am I not breathing properly? So you want to become aware that you're speaking, right? This is something that's very consistent. Then you want to become aware of how you're speaking. So those things are very important. Now, once you become aware of those things, then it's much easier for you to change them, right? To take the necessary steps to change them. But if you're not aware, and then you just get out there and you're speaking constantly, you're going to find that you'll speak the same way that you always do. So one of the things that we say is that you'll probably need to devote, at least initially, about 80%. Now it could be 50 or 60, or it could be 80 or 90, but about 80% of your attention to how you're speaking when you speak. Now, what does this mean? This means that whenever you speak, you're going to need to use what we call cognitive breathing space. You're going to have to set an intention that when you're speaking and you pause, for example, that you remind yourself, and we'll talk about this just a little more when we talk about self-talk. You remind yourself, hey, I need to do this. I need to speak this. I need to slow down. I need to remember to breathe. And you'll have to do that throughout the entire conversation, throughout the entire time that you're speaking. And I'll say this again when we talk about self-talk. But you have to first become aware, right? You have to become aware that you're speaking and how you're speaking. So that's the first step. The next principle here, that's the first principle, and it's a step too, right? So the next step or principle would be the principle of consistency. This means that in order to create a new pattern or habit or change the way you speak, you're going to need to consistently or repeatedly do the same thing over and over. Now, this is based on what we call Hebb's law. Hebb's law says that neurons that fire together wire together, right? What this simply means is that when we want to learn a new skill or develop a new behavior or change a pattern, create a new pattern or habit, that habit or pattern, that behavior will be represented by a network of neurons that are communicating with each other. They're firing together, right? They're communicating with each other. And the more and the faster that they're able to communicate, the more of a pattern or habit, the more you reach a level or phase or stage of automaticity. That means it becomes automatic. You don't have to think of it. So think of it like a graph. When you're creating a habit or pattern, it's like climbing a hill. And we'll talk about the resistance, the principle of resistance that you're going to. So it's like climbing a hill, but then it gets to a point where it becomes easier, and then it becomes automatic. So you're on the other side. So in order for that to happen, in order for you to get to the top of the hill and then make it easier, you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent. So with speech, that means every single time you open your mouth to speak, you have to see that as practice time. You have to be aware, I'm speaking, and this is how I want to speak. How I want to speak are those steps. They're the steps that you're taking to get to your destination. How do I want to speak? What do I need to do in terms of breathing? What do I need to do in terms of my body language, my voice inflection, right? What do I need to do in terms of my pacing, flow, and rhythm? These are all the steps that you have to take in order to reach your destination. That first starts with awareness. Second, it starts with repeating those steps over and over. So think about the journey and think about the fact if you just take one step, you're not going to get there. If you take 5 steps, you're probably not going to get there, depending on how close the destination is. So you'll need to take those same steps over and over in the direction of your destination. That means that you'll need to repeat those same activities both in private and in public. So you're going to practice these steps in private, and you're going to practice them when you actually speak with people, okay, in public. So you have to be consistent. You can't do it in some situations and not others. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes when people are around their friends and family or people that know them, they let themselves off the hook and they go ahead and speak the way they usually speak. What you're doing is you're not being consistent, therefore you're not allowing Hebb's law to take effect, which is to fire those neurons together so that they wire, which is going to represent your new way of speaking or your new way of thinking. So you have to repeat the same behavior, the same thoughts, right, over and over until they fire together, or else your more dominant, which would be your current, your more dominant speaking style, way of speaking, your more dominant way of thinking and believing will persist, So in order for you to create a new one, you have to create a more dominant way of speaking and thinking so that it takes over the old one. I like to explain it like this, like a relationship. Let's say you're in a relationship with someone and it's just not good for you, or it's not good for that person. So you have to disconnect. You have to stop communicating with that person so that if you want, you can create a new relationship. So you have to start communicating with someone else and stop communicating with that other person. If you continue to communicate with the other person, you'll continue that relationship or that behavior. So if those neurons that represent your current way of speaking and thinking, if they continue to fire together, they'll remain dominant. That's why it's challenging sometimes to create new patterns, because we keep doing the same things that we've always done. So if we want to change, we have to know what the change is, we have to know how we're going to get there, the steps, and then we have to make sure that the behaviors that we're involved in are reflective of and reflect the steps and the activities, right, which are going to cause those neurons that represent those behaviors and activities, make sure that they're firing and wiring together on a consistent basis. So it's very important that you cut off communication with the old behavior and build communication with the new behavior. That is literally, those neurons are communicating with each other. And the more they communicate, the more they wire together. There's something called myelin. And this is, think of it like an insulation. So the more that neurons fire together, the more those neurons begin to emit, if you will, this substance that wraps the neurons, that insulates them, so that the communication can become faster and better and easier. It says, hey, this is a behavior that we want to do all the time. We don't want to use a lot of energy and effort to do this. So let's insulate these neurons together so that the signal can pass between them faster and easier. This is when, once again, you reach a level of automaticity, when things are just easier. You become an expert at something. This can take some time to do, but it does happen. So that brings us to our next principle, which is principle of resistance. Principle of resistance. You will experience resistance when you're trying to create new patterns and habits. This is our brain's way of being efficient. If we could just switch habits and change habits quickly and easily, then we would be kind of unstable. So for stability purposes, it takes some resistance, it takes some time, it can be frustrating, right? It can be exhausting to create new patterns and habits. And a part of it is because the neural network that represents that new behavior hasn't been developed yet, right? So literally you're changing, you're rewiring, in a sense, you're growing parts of your brain that represent, for example, speech, that represent breathing, and all this that represent intonation, body language. You're literally creating a new neural network, a new neural pattern that represents that. And because it hasn't been wired together yet, because it hasn't been connected, the communication is not quite there, you experience resistance. And what this feels like for you and I, sometimes it feels like exhaustion. We can feel tired. We can even come up with reasons why we don't want to do it, right? We can try to justify, well, I don't need to do that. They know how I speak. Or this is not very important, so I don't really feel like, or I don't feel like I need to use this new speak style. I only need to use it at work or when I'm ordering something or something. But no, because we have to be consistent. You have to do it all the time. And you have to understand that you'll experience that resistance, which can keep people, or prevent people from being consistent. So by your being aware that you will experience resistance, and in fact, that's a good thing for you, that when you're trying to create a new pattern, you literally want to be in the zone of resistance. So if you're not in the zone of resistance, whenever you speak, whenever you open your mouth to speak, if you're not feeling that resistance, it probably means you're using your old style of speaking. This is already wired in, it's already easy for you to do that. Even though it's hard, but it's easy for you because you've been doing it. So you want to make sure that you feel that resistance. Probably by the end of the day, or maybe even midway through, you might feel more tired than you usually feel. Why? Because you're trying to consciously engage a new way of speaking. You're trying to consciously do it, which requires more effort and more energy and more focus. And that means you're going to experience resistance. So you'll need to be aware that you're going to experience resistance, and that you may even justify why you don't want to, why you shouldn't have to, which can keep you from building the new patterns. You need to be aware of that. And then you need to actually look for that feeling, look to put yourself in that zone of resistance. Okay, very important that you understand this, or else you'll be like, oh, no, I don't really feel like doing it now. So then you're going to short circuit the principle of consistency, which is what builds the habit, repeating it over and over. And then the final one we talked about earlier, this is the principle of self-talk. It's going to be very hard to be aware and very hard to repeat the same steps over and over if you don't remind yourself or talk to yourself in the moment. It's going to be almost impossible, right? Almost impossible. So what you'll need to do, and what you'll need to be aware of again, is that, hey, I need to be reminding myself of the steps I need to take every time I'm speaking. Now, you heard me mention something called cognitive breathing space. I did a whole session on the audience effect, and we talked about cognitive breathing space when we talked about the solution, so that when you're in the moment speaking, like I am now, there's a space of time when you pause where you can actually remind yourself to do certain things. One, you can breathe, you can take a breath, and you can self-talk. You can say, remember to slow down, remember to slow down. Or you can focus, you can shift your focus to something, right? So in that cognitive breathing space, what you're doing is that space, that time when you pause, it is giving you back, it's releasing some of the cognitive load that you're using when you're speaking. So whenever you and I are speaking, we're using a degree of cognitive load. That is looking at the environment, thinking about the idea, the concept. How are other people responding? Are we getting our point across? It's a lot of different things that we're thinking about that our brain is using or has a load, right? It's using a certain amount of effort and energy to perform those tasks. When you pause, just for that second, when you pause, it relieves that load, right? It lessens that load. And it's that little bit of extra space, extra capacity that you get that you can use to remind yourself how you want to speak. The reason this is so important is that some people think, well, when I'm speaking, I don't have time to remind myself of this. I don't have time to do that because I'm thinking about other things. That's very normal. You are thinking about other things, but you actually do have time, especially when you pause. You do have time to remind yourself through self-talk, this is what I need to do. But you can't do it once or twice or 3 times. You have to do it repeatedly because it's not a habit yet. So you have to constantly remind yourself throughout the entire conversation, for example, to breathe or to slow down, right? And that's what requires more effort and energy. And that's where you'll experience a resistance, which is why a lot of people don't want to do it, because you actually feel more tired. Does that make sense? So this is a process. This is what happens when we're speaking and we're trying to change the way that we speak. You'll feel that resistance, but it's through self-talk, continuous self-talk, reminding yourself over and over and over while you are speaking what you want to do, how you want to speak. So 4 principles that we talked about that are absolutely critical. If you don't remember these, you more than likely will not be able to change your speech. 1 is awareness. Have to become more aware. I've seen this thousands of people, right? Once they start becoming aware, oh, I'm speaking right now. Oh, this is how I want to speak. I'm not speaking the way I want to. So got to become aware. 2nd is consistency. I got to repeat the same pattern. What is it that I need to do? Well, I need to make sure that I breathe more or breathe deeper. I need to make sure that I slow my pacing down. Well, how do I do that? Well, I can extend my words. I can articulate. I can finish my words more. Those are just a few things. I need to inflect more, right? So those are just some of the things that you can do that can help to slow your speech down and enhance your speech. So you have to remind yourself to do at least one of those things every time that you're speaking. So you have to be consistent at that. And the 3rd one is resistance. You have to know that when I try to do that, I'm going to experience resistance because it's not normal for me. Some of you will even say, this isn't me. This doesn't feel like me. This doesn't sound like me. This isn't the way I speak. That's exactly right. And that is the point, that you don't want it to be you. You don't want it to be the way you usually speak. You don't want it to sound the way that you usually do. Because if you do, what you're doing is you're simply affirming your old neural network, your old pattern. What you want to do is create a new one. So it should feel a little weird, be a little strange. Now, I'm not saying that it'll sound that way to other people. In fact, to other people, it'll sound smooth. It'll sound great, but it'll be different. And so it'll take you some time to get used to that, just as it might take other people time to adjust to your new style of speaking. So we got awareness, we have consistency, we have resistance that you need to experience initially, but that will go away. And then we have self-talk, the thing that allows you, that you use to remind yourself of what you need to do while you're speaking. So if you'd like to literally put into practice what you're learning, I want to encourage you to join our Virtual Speech Masters Club, Pro 90D Virtual Speech Masters Club. It's just $120 for 6 months. Not every month, just 6 months you can attend. We have these virtually every weekend, right? They go for about 90 minutes. Usually they're at 12 p.m. Eastern Time every single Saturday. And you can join us and you can practice what you learn under pressure in a safe, supportive environment and get expert and peer feedback. You can see yourself growing. There's various things that we do there. Those of you who are professionals and you want to accelerate your progress, you're going to want to work with myself or Farouk one-on-one. You're going to want to work with us one-on-one because you get accountability there so you can be consistent. You get feedback, evaluation of feedback. We can look at you and say, hey, here's what you need to work on first. All right, here's what you need to work on second. You and I don't know what we don't know. So we can tell you those things that you don't know, or maybe you think you're doing. Well, I thought I was slowing down. Well, we actually need to slow you down more. Or, hey, now you need to do this. So the coaching helps you do that. And then finally, encouragement. Some people want to give up, and so the coach helps you stay encouraged. This can save you years of time and thousands of dollars. So one of the things I want to leave you with is just think about the fact that the time is going to pass anyway. Whatever amount of money you spend on the Speech Masters Club, on a self-study, on coaching, you're going to spend that money eventually, right? The question is it an investment in yourself, in your professional life, your personal life, and your social life? Is it an investment that's going to give you a return or not? And then if you transform your speech, how does that impact your professional life, your income, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your ability to influence people, persuade people, your ability to do what you're called to do, the jobs that you really want to do? How is that going to affect you professionally, personally, socially? Are you going to be able to have deeper conversations, more conversations, go out and do things that you've always wanted to do? Well, we've been doing this. I've been doing this for about 12 years now. In fact, we're going to make sure that we have a link to a recent video, and you'll see someone's speech then, you'll see someone's speech before, and just within a couple of weeks, you'll see the transformation, and you'll hear how it's impacted his life in all of those areas. Most people don't want to give us their pre-video, like they don't want us to show it, but we have hundreds of them, if not thousands of them actually, right? So you're just seeing one or two or three of the thousands of people that we've helped them transform their speech. So I just wanted to leave you with that. So you think about this, think about the fact that it's an investment. So go back and watch these videos, because this topic of change is at the core of your ability to transform your speech, right? If you can't change it, then don't waste your money. But if you understand everything we've talked about in each of these videos, then you will be able to make a transformation in your speech, and in a relatively short period of time. Thank you so much. My name is Michael Williams. Look forward to seeing you either in our speech club or one-on-one.